Welcome to the Success Fitness Podcast. I am your host, Christian Evans. This podcast is for adults who wants to achieve success in their fitness journey. And our special guest today, Summer Rose, will help us do just that by sharing her story of when she weighed in at 410 pounds, how the look on her father's face when he thought he was going to lose his daughter was the catalyst to start her weight loss journey. But first, she had to learn how to become consistent and discipline. The desire to be able to perform normally was the motivation to help her lose over 200 pounds naturally and keep it off for close to a decade. She's learned that her journey is aligned with her purpose to inspire the world to be their best selves through leading by example. Without further ado, Success Fitness family, please welcome Summer Rose to the podcast. How you doing, Summer?
Hey, Christian, I'm doing well. How are you?
All is well, all is well, all is well. Let everybody know where you are from and where you're currently at right now.
Okay, so I am currently traveling and I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. However, I am from Virginia, a small town called Harrisonburg. A lot of people don't know of it. But I spent most of my years in Hampton Roads, Virginia. So Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, that area.
I got you. When I was younger, my favorite basketball team, one of my favorite basketball teams was the Charlotte Hornets. But now, not so much. But one of my favorite places to go, it's not North Carolina. That's South Carolina. Myrtle Beach is in South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
I remember driving there with my grandmother when I was young. That was a long trip far as from where we were driving from Illinois, and just driving. Oh, my knees were just hurting. We were talking off air, just about just knees. And I think I was probably going through a growth spurt at that time. All I can remember just being in the back of a van, crunched up. I had to be about maybe 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there. And it just like this pain in my knees. And I just attributed to probably just growth spurt. So, that's been my only time being around in that area. I believe my cousin graduated from North Carolina A&T.
Okay.
And so that's the only connection in regards to the Carolinas that I somewhat have. So you started off your fitness journey at 410 pounds. Tell me, how did you get to 410 pounds?
Ooh, well, you know what? I've talked to different family members, different friends about this throughout my journey. And honestly, looking back on it, it was never really I found extreme comfort in food, or I was just like overly consuming food. It was the foods I was eating, the lack of activity I was probably doing, and potentially even the lack of rest that I was getting back then. Just the lifestyle that, was starting to play out at that age. I was around 19, 20. So, party days and not making the best decisions in general were definitely at play. But yeah, I would say that.
I got you. Now, we attribute a lot of like our bad eating habits to youth because, when you're young, you can just eat anything and, you don't really gain anything per se. But in our cases, I was young and just eating, and you don't really think about, you're overweight, you're fat, or whatever type of category you want to call it at the time. Yeah. You're just fine. What things were you doing, let's say, during that time in that age? Like you said, young, college days and high school days, just eating, going back and forth. What else was happening in your life during that time?
Well, I want to say towards my later high school years, probably my senior year, I began working full time on top of going to school. I did finish up some classes early, so I wasn't necessarily needing to be at school all day. But with working a full-time job at that age that I didn't particularly love, just I'm getting money as a senior felt good, but any time that I would have had free in the moment, I would usually be meeting up with friends. Of course, a lot of them, if I can't remember a single friend that I had that was very health conscious. You are who you're around. So, going out to like happy hours, and even being that I wasn't old enough to drink in a public setting, we did a lot of those like late night Applebee's, IHOP trips. And of course, at whatever age, there's always someone on hand that can get the alcohol for you. So underage drinking is at play. For myself, I was definitely self-medicating really early, smoking marijuana. And that was, I want to say, my go-to kind of gateway that just kind of led into a lot of my really bad habits for a lot of years. And of course, if you know anything about smoking, that leads into munchies. And I just, at a point, I wasn't cognizant or almost conscious of anything that I was doing to my body after a while.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
the say desire or need or whatever want to self-medicate, what drove that feeling? Were you trying to escape something and then trying to like mask your feelings and stuff? Because I know, far as for me personally, I know I'm an emotional eater. I found that out during my weight loss journey. Things start happening and my brain is just going, 1,000 miles an hour, and I'm just eating. Next thing you know, it's an entire bag of chips, and then next thing you know, it's a entire row of double stuffed Oreo cookies. And it's like, oh snap! The whole time my mind is going because my emotions are high. I'm thinking about something. I'm dealing with the aftermath of a relationship, failed relationship, and not necessarily a relationship between man and woman. It could just be friendships, relationship, a loved one passes away or whatever. So what was some of the things that were driving some of those methods to, I would call it, escape?
Honestly, I think I was very hypersensitive from a young age. So I caught on to people treating me differently because of my size, all the way from relatives to teachers early on, classmates, friends, whatever. I was always taught to, with more than empathy, but almost sympathy for something that I couldn't quite gauge at the earliest of ages. But once I started getting older, it started being, certain kids are afraid of me because of my size. Certain groups of kids don't want to play with me because of my size. And as I got older, it started like showing up in different ways, in different conversations. And I think it was just always, no pun, but the elephant in the room. Because I was that sensitive, kind, very sweetheart of a child, a lot of people didn't want to break my spirit to my face. But it was definitely, again, the elephant in the room. And as I got older and I got bigger, it was like I could only say or do so much before I was getting bullied a lot, or before, people were talking behind my back and kind of staying away from me. So I carried that to the point that now I'm in high school, even early on in college, and I can't keep up physically walking with my friends, trying to manage having a conversation, going up a flight of stairs. And I have one very core memory of visiting New York City with a big group of my friends. And I remember being so excited to do so, but we had taken a walk throughout the city, and we ended up somewhere around the Brooklyn Bridge. And I remember specifically there was a hill going up to my friend's apartment. And I remember trailing so far behind the group because I couldn't take, breathing and not being able to talk to anyone. And I remember my friends kind of, like delegating, like one friend kind of stay back and stay with me during the time so that I wasn't alone. And that was kind of the first little breadcrumb that kind of initiated the change, and it didn't happen right at that moment, but that's kind of what started turning the wheels.
So when that happened, that experience happened, what was going through your mind? You said that was kind of like maybe like step one of like the inception of, hey, maybe I need to change because I don't like the way I'm feeling. I don't like, I just don't like it, from the standpoint of how I'm feeling, or from the standpoint of, yes, how I'm feeling in two ways, physically. And then I'm noticing somebody has to kind of slow up for me. What was going through your head, at that time, far as when you're like, okay, I know something is wrong. What was that feeling like, just honing in on that, even though that's like the first and the inception of, I know I have to change? What else was going through your mind at the time? Because like now you're aware. There's nothing like something snapping, and you're aware. You're like, hold on, this isn't good. This isn't cool. What was going through your head at that time?
Yeah, definitely embarrassment. I remember trying to carry it like I was kind of trying to take in the sights alone. I always remember kind of being not so much a recluse, but because I was always a social person. But in my social group, I always kind of either veered off on my own or kind of stayed back anyway. So I think in a sense it may have been expected, but at the same time, a lot of people just knew, obviously, I couldn't keep up with the group. And that was disheartening, of course, discouraging. And even after that moment, I went home. I remember on the Greyhound, headed back home with some of those friends. I was writing out like what I was going to change in my life and how I was going to bring about change. And I had never done that, put pen to paper, speaking on, changing my health. And in that moment, it felt very promising. And as soon as I got back to reality, back to normalcy, nothing really changed. I had so many things that I wanted to change at once, and I didn't understand the concept of needing to make small incremental changes to have long-term success. So of course I tried to do everything cold turkey multiple times, and it didn't work. So, yeah.
Right. Because when you first get that initial kind of wake up call, it's like, okay, cold turkey, like you said, I'm going to do everything, I'm throwing out everything in my refrigerator, however that looks. And then, like you said, going through the actual process of actually doing it, you're like, well, hold on, this is a lot tougher or more challenging than actually writing it down or jotting it down. But it is still a first step because it's the initiation of a goal that you want to achieve. The thing is that we all have goals, and it's the logistics of how to get from, point A to point C. And it's like, what is B? What does B look like? You know what I mean? So you're going through this first initiative phase of, like, say, inception, and you're thinking about, these are the changes that I'm making. When did it click for you in regards to, I'm finding a system that's working for me? And then you kind of backtrack. What was that like? Because I want to make sure people understand, like, it's not just so much of, oh, hey, I thought about something and then I start losing weight. It's like, no, because I've gone through that. You're like, okay, yeah, I got this plan. I'm hyped. Today is Monday. I'm gonna eat, baked chicken, rice, and broccoli. And then come Wednesday, I got a bag of chips in my hand. It's like, oh, well, what was that? What did one of those first encounters for you look like? And how did you feel about that? Kind of like failing at your first attempt?
Ooh, well, there was so many failed attempts. Honestly, I always was pretty self-aware, even as the problem continued, as so many of us are. But that's one of the reasons why I named my YouTube channel Day 1 Million, because it felt like the 1 millionth day that I had tried starting my weight loss journey again. And I remember by the time that I was finally starting into my journey and it was becoming successful, there was a moment where it seemed like every single time that I wrote out what I was going to do, or I started, taking those small steps, something just kind of, I would revert back into what I was doing before. So not until I had that very traumatic experience that I believe I briefly spoke with you about, and through email. And I can go into that if need be, but
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Go through it.
Okay. But it wasn't until that moment that trigger, that type of traumatic experience, really, there was no other decision but to succeed in that moment. So it didn't matter if I had to go cold turkey. If I was going to do small changes, whatever it was going to take, I was willing to do at that point. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned about your father. You mentioned
Yes.
about your father, this look on his face and kind of that fear of possibly being in this world without his daughter, without his baby, without you. What was that situation? What was that scenario? Can you walk me through what that was when you actually saw with your own eyes, like something just like I made dad feel some type of way? And what was that, and how did that make you feel?
Definitely. So from a baby, of course, I've always been my dad's baby, and to see the look on his face in that moment was just heartbreaking, to say the least. But
now, was this like a doctor's appointment or something? Was this like a doctor's appointment you went to, and then they told you something, and then that came about? How did that come about? Because like you said, you've this has been a kind of progression in regards to as far as just youth, lifestyle, eating and gaining weight, but something had to reach its pinnacle. What was that again? Was that a doctor's visit, or hospital visit, or something? What was that for you two to kind of just be in this one-on-one moment to where it's like, okay, I got to do something? What was that?
Right. So he had taken me to multiple doctor's appointments, sat in them with me, heard everything doctors were telling me. If I don't change my eating habits, if I don't start exercising, I'm looking at not making it past 25. Somehow those words never affected me, hearing those out of a doctor's mouth. But it wasn't until I had went to a nightclub, kind of like a gentleman's club, with my best friend at the time, and there was a altercation between the DJ and I when we were in the club, and at a point he had kind of scratched the music and put the spotlight of the club on me and asked over the loudspeaker, like, who let a cow into the club? So
What?
yeah, that moment, and I was kind of like, I'm sure I was very inebriated at that moment, so it didn't immediately click. But once it did, I was very problematic at that age. I would feed into drama, and anything like that was just kind of an immediate, like, I'm gonna snap. So I remember taking all of the glasses off of the tables around me, trying to throw them into the DJ booth. I remember trying to climb
Rightfully
over
so. Rightfully
Yeah.
so. Right. Listen, I stand behind that. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Keep going.
Definitely. Luckily, my friend, she was able to grab our IDs, because at the time we weren't even 21 yet. We really shouldn't have been in the club. But just after that moment, it was an extremely sobering ride home. For about 2 hours, my friend had drove us home, and she dropped me off at my apartment. And I just remember kind of like robotic, just walking into my bathroom, opening my medicine cabinet and taking out all of the bottles of medicine that I had. One of those being one of those like larger, like 500 pill aspirin bottles and just shoveling like all of
Oh
them.
my goodness.
So once I did that, I remember kind of just laying down on my couch and like slowly starting to fall asleep. And something just like almost shocked me. And I popped up and I like ran out the door. I remember driving myself to the hospital at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and just kind of like stepping out of my car and just blacking out in the parking lot. And that's the moment when I woke up and I saw my mom and my dad at the end of the hospital bed. My stomach was being pumped, IVs everywhere. And he just looked so helpless. Like no matter what he could do in that moment, he couldn't help his baby girl. And I knew in that moment for me, if I did not use that as fuel to change my life, the next time that he saw me with that look on his face, he wouldn't be seeing me alive. So that was the ultimate catalyst.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Now, are you the only child? You mentioned about being around friends a lot. Now, did you have any siblings?
I do. I have 2 older siblings and 2 younger. So I'm the middle child.
Okay. Okay. Now, what was, their reaction to that whole situation just as well? Because, you got you got your pops, you got your mom, obviously family. What was kind of like the consensus and like, you realize and it's like, okay, I'm not well. Something is off and I got to be here. I got to be here for, not only dad and mom. What was the feeling like in regards to being here for your siblings? What was that like?
Right. Well, some of my siblings were, or my 2 older siblings were a bit older than me. So they were kind of more like almost parental figures at certain times in my life. So it was almost the same type of wow factor. Like they would have never seen that coming. And along with them, younger siblings too, and friends, nobody really knew that I was going through that level of, even prior to the whole strip club situation, no one knew that I was suffering because of how bubbly and charismatic I typically am. And I always considered myself to be like the funny fat friend who would always, make myself the butt of the joke before anyone else could. So people who aren't going through that situation themselves also, or typically don't see that maybe that's a cry for help or that's a way of like a coping mechanism. So that
Correct.
kind of just shattered all of that. And people were definitely shocked, but supportive for me in that moment.
Got you. So you make it out the hospital. What was step 1 of changing your life around? What did that consist of?
Mm-hmm. So my oldest sister, she lived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the time. And that had happened in the summer, going into the summer of 2014. She said she's coming out here to spend the summer with me. I want to be around her more. I want to try to just offer her a change in environment, whatever she could. I mean, I was ecstatic. I knew I needed change. I needed to probably be around more family than friends and the habits that I had developed. So I made my way to Florida. And I remember, I haven't told everyone this through my journey, but I remember the first month of being in Florida, I literally ate Special K and walked the streets of Florida like all day. I think part of me was
Special K, the cereal, the cereal.
The cereal.
Yeah, I got you. And around what year was this? And how old were you then?
That was 2014, the summer of 2014. And
summer of 2014 in Florida, eating Special K walking the streets. Keep going.
Yep. And the dark chocolate Special K cereal, to be exact. That was my favorite.
Okay.
I would eat that with strawberries and blueberries. And that wasn't like a method to my madness or anything, but I think that was just a small change that actually stuck because I enjoyed it. And it didn't feel forced. But even before moving to Florida with her, once you go through like being admitted into the hospital for a suicide attempt, they typically will keep you in the hospital for a few days. So I remember during that time, I was very, very intentional in the foods that I was eating. Even some of the hospital meals that they were bringing to me. And I was never one to say no to food, but
Right.
something just literally snapped in me. The sugary juices that they were bringing in, I was like, can I have water instead? I wasn't eating the crackers and the cookies. I was just literally sticking to like proteins and salads. And I was like, wow, I'm really doing this consistently. But like I said, it was all because of my dad. It was really because of him.
Okay. So when you made these small incremental changes in comparison to that ride home that, when you were writing down like in your notes and you're like, okay, I got this big grand scheme of how I'm going to change my life. And now it's okay. Now I'm making these little small increments of changes. What type of nutritional information or education did you have and how did you acquire it in regards to knowing what to eat? Or was it just kind of just instinctual? You're like, you know what? I may not know exactly, my macros and carbs and all that, calorie stuff. I just know that I don't want this sugary juice. I know I don't want these cookies. How did you have the know-how to
Right.
know what to eat kind of like during that initiation stage?
Well, I attribute so much of my success to God and the God in me. But beyond that, I just felt like certain things were intuitive for me in that state. It was kind of like I
Gotcha.
had to have that wake up call in that moment to almost not even learn, but to download that wisdom that may have always been there. People are so surprised when I say this, but I have never counted a calorie, counted a macro throughout my entire journey of losing 200 pounds.
Amazing.
Right.
Amazing. 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 And you know what? That's a good testimony because personally, I'm a numbers person. I personally like to track certain things. It's just a habit. It's a habit that I started when I initially lost my weight. And when I go through my phases, when I need to drop some weight, I go back to my system and I try to teach my clients to have some type of system to where they at least track something. But there's people like you who just say, you know what? I know I just need to change. I know I'm not supposed to have this. I know I'm not supposed to have this based off of, like you said, the intuitive eating. Because if I eat too much of this, I feel this type of way. It's like your own type of system or mathematical, computation. So I salute you on that. I salute you on that. Now, that first, let's say 20 pounds, when did you notice that? Or did you step on a scale, or was it just like away from, this environment to where I eat a lot, I eat the not so good things for me, and now I'm away? Was it more like I'm just more focusing on me and healing myself, and it just so happened you start dropping the weight? Or were you just really tracking, at least far from that standpoint, because you weren't tracking calories, but were you tracking as far as your weight, or were you just really just tracking how you felt inside?
Right. So while I was in Florida, and I mentioned the whole Special K, I think being in the summer sun of Florida, being physical, that definitely did something for me. I didn't really weigh myself during that time frame because I didn't want to get discouraged by seeing a number not dropping quick enough or whatever. But once I returned home later that year, I started a bet with my friend at the time to lose, no, we didn't have a weight number, just to set out on a plan of losing whatever we could by not eating red meat. Like the bet was like, you can't go 30 days without eating red meat. And I was like, you're right. So it was like, I tried for a day and I found myself eating steak like the next day. But I tried it again.
It's like the moment you say you can't have something, you just intentionally just do it. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
like you said, okay, let me eat red meat. And now all of a sudden, steaks go on sale. It's like, really?
Right. Let me cook it with the extra fat. But
yeah.
I did try it again and I successfully got through that 30 days. And prior to starting, I actually did weigh myself at that time. And that's when I got the 410. So potentially I may have been even heavier than that, but I stopped weighing myself.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So 4'10" and your height is, what's your height?
5'8".
5'8". And I love to bring clarity into that. That way people can understand the gravity of, body composition and body sizes. Sometimes, somebody can be, 400 pounds and 6'3", but then 400 plus pounds, like you said, it could have been maybe 420, 425, but at 5'8", that's just compact. Is just compact. So going back to your story, you're saying, one day you finally end up weighing and it's like, okay, now I'm 410. I possibly could have been more, but when you did weigh, you were kind of just on that momentum wheel of change, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you did the 30 days, no meat. And then what happened after that 30 days? Was it another challenge between you and your friend? If so, what was that? And how did that work out?
So after that, and I saw in those 30 days, I lost exactly 30 pounds. I was just stunned, blew out of the water because I had made no other changes, no other dietary or I never incorporated any workouts. At that point, I even stopped walking once I got back home. So just to see that was mind blowing to me. So I kind of took that in and I was like, so if I lost 30 pounds in 30 days from cutting out red meat, what would happen if I cut out all of the other processed things that I know I shouldn't be eating? What would happen? So I want to say for the next 2 months, probably, I was just making small dietary changes, nothing all at once. But I didn't start incorporating any type of workout regimen or anything. And once I got to a point where I felt like my energy levels were there, I was feeling more confident. My mind was just less brain fog and I felt like I could do certain new things. I decided that I was going to start working out. So from there, I had a good friend of mine who she had a gym in her apartment complex. And lucky for me, there was never anyone who went to that gym. It was always only me, with like the exception of maybe one person for a few minutes. But that gave me a safe space to kind of learn certain equipment. It wasn't much in that gym, a lot of cardio machines and a few cable things, maybe a few free weights, but it was a really good introduction. And that got me to a space where I worked out in that gym consistently for about 2 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And I just told myself, sweat. I had no idea what I was doing.
Okay. That was getting ready to be my next question. What were some of the routines? Can you remember what you were doing?
Well, I do remember that with those cardio machines, there was like an elliptical, a stair stepper, and a treadmill all aligned. I would try to do at least 30 minutes on each one of those and kind of build up. So the beginning of my journey, there was a lot more cardio involved just because it's like you don't have to think much. You don't have to work on your form. You know how to do these things.
Right. Now, while you were doing that cardio, was there a TV in there? Were you watching, or were you watching stuff on your phone? Was it just music, or how did you zone out? Because I know, far as for me, when I initially started my weight loss journey, 400 pounds and getting on the elliptical, I told myself at least like 15 minutes, week one, and then week two, at least 20 to 25. But I know I personally would watch something like, say, YouTube or whatever. And then I had this crazy idea of I want to go for 45 minutes. So I found Breaking Bad on Netflix. And I said, if I can watch this whole entire show, I'm good. And if anybody's familiar with Breaking Bad, sometimes the episodes are 39 minutes, sometimes they're 47. And it's a big difference. It's a big difference between like 39 and like 42. But that was, the goal. And that was one of the ways I found to put myself in the zone and not focus on my legs burning, my heart trying to pump out of my chest. But what was that for you?
Right. And that, let me applaud that, because that's a great way of doing things, I think. For me, I've definitely always been a music person. I always have a soundtrack playing in the back of my life. So it wasn't hard for me to find a groove or a mood for the moment. I do believe there may have been a TV in there, and I didn't have the best of headphones. So like I said, me being the only person in the room, I could kind of control it depending on what mood I was feeling. Sometimes I would turn on like BET, MTV back then, I believe. But I was so busy sweating and getting into it, like I was not paying attention to that TV.
I got you. So when did you introduce yourself to weights, and who introduced that, to you? Was it a friend, or was it just, let me try something, and then you just went from there?
Right. So I've always been an initiator in my life of change and new things when it comes to my self-development. So I like to work independently when I can. So I never went to anyone per se for like guidance. I always really wanted to try to figure it out on my own, because I think at my core, I felt like it's something that everyone should do, whether they know how to or not. I just felt like it was something that I could grasp eventually. So once I got to, I want to say, what time? My mind just kind of went blank. I saw something outside.
No, I got you. In regards to far as like, weightlifting, because you mentioned a couple of things that I can relate to. I personally have a home gym in my home, and I do train clients out of here. And it's exactly what you just said, to where I can just focus on the client, or the client can just be the only person that I'm focusing on, and they are the focus, because going to a big gym, commercial gym, it can be intimidating to people, and that's okay. I at least try to provide that space, and so I can understand, or that person can understand, that it's okay, if you don't do a sit up the perfect way, the best way, or push up, or it's just taking the time that's necessary to execute a workout, right? And even with you saying, okay, initially, you're doing anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes of cardio, and eventually you started implementing weights into your routine. The most important thing that I want people to understand, even in your story, in your journey, is that it's not about working out. And as a personal trainer, I'm saying that it's not about working out, because that is how weight loss is framed. Weight loss is framed solely just from working out. But we're probably 35, 40 minutes in, and we've spent at least 10 to 15 minutes honing in on, I changed my diet. I made these small incremental change. It's your nutrition. Then it's the gym. Then it's the working out. And I'm pretty sure you get inboxes. People inbox, hey, what kind of workout did you do? And it's like, yeah, okay, I can tell you about my workout, but what is your plate looking like?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because your plate is going to fuel your energy to do said workout. We've had plenty of times where during this weight loss phase, there could be times where it's like, okay, you could be feeling yourself, or you're still trying to experiment on what you can have, what you can't have before, after a workout or whatever. And during those times when you may not make the best of choice the night before, and you got to work out the next day, you feel it, and you're like, you know what, I can't have that. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, I ate a pot of rice, or I ate too much popcorn or whatever, and you're just slugging that next day. But you're like, you know what, I gotta own it up. I gotta own it. This is just what it is, because this is what I did. But I just want to take that time to really emphasize that you change your nutrition first, and then you introduce weight loss. I mean, you introduced working out and cardio. I just don't like the narrative where nowadays, we're both on IG and we all we see is workout, and it's cool. You know what I mean? It's cool. But the other part that is more important, it's about 75 to 80% of it, is your nutrition. And that's the thing that it is tough. It can be challenging. You got, I got Crumble right almost across the street from my house. You understand what I'm saying? Or you can go to the gas station. Yeah, it's, you got Doritos, Cheetos, whatever. We have more access. We have more access to, let's say, sugary, high carb foods or whatever than we do to, let's say workout equipment, right? Let's say, fitness style, fitness lifestyle. But truth of the matter is that, like you just said, it's like I started off in a small gym. When my initial far as weight loss journey and far as fitness, I was just working out in my room. If you can do a push up and do a body squat, that's your gym far as right there. So it's not about all the fancy equipment. It's not about, the fancy leggings. It's not about what type of headphones you got. It's about, like you said, it's about me and trying to figure out me. Right. What pushes me? What drives me? What can I do? What can I do? What can I learn? What can I not do? And if I can't do it, how can I? And how can I? Now you introduce yourself to weights, and then did you start seeing the weight drop off a lot more, or what was that situation like?
Once I got to a point where I felt confident enough to start picking up weights, I realized I wasn't in the best environment to really up level my fitness. So that's when I made the extremely scary move to join what I called the big girl gym, which was just essentially, your typical, I want to say, gold gym or something like that. And it was a really nice gym that I did join. Fancy membership, a lot of different amenities, but when I say I joined that gym and got like every dollar out of that membership, there was a few two-a-days involved, not many, but when I was there, I worked. Everyone from the people who worked there to people I may have went to school with that also worked out, definitely saw that I was serious about making those changes. Because once I started looking at the equipment, surprisingly, I didn't even find myself like researching much online. YouTube University was really our only big app that we were finding a lot of value on. So sometimes I would look there for inspiration, but I was more excited than anything to be in that space because I had already built that consistency of showing up for myself in the small gym. So I'm like, oh, now it's just a bigger playground. I had the endurance, I built up the strength, and it was almost like effortless once I started hitting the weights, and that quickly became more of like an obsession to an extent. And I can't walk into the gym now without picking up weights. So, yeah.
What were some of your favorite muscle groups to train then and now?
It's definitely changed.
My favorite exercise. I got you. Yep. Progression. Yep. And that's a great answer. That's a great answer because it doesn't have to be, solely one. And personally, for me, lately it's been back. It's like, what's
Mm,
today? Friday. I think I've hit back at least maybe like three
correct.
times this week because
Yeah,
I'm working out with my clients just as well because of the way that one for me to get my workout just as well. And between the
gotcha.
clients that I got, it's like, yeah, I can keep up far as with, what workouts, but then it's like, all right, this is what we're doing because sometimes, things get paired a different way. I know personally for me, it's back and chest, but
Yeah.
what is yours or what was yours? You can answer both.
Well, that's like also my go-to now. But back then, as I had mentioned to you, my legs have always been my strongest. So I kind of used that to my advantage. I felt like the strength was naturally there. So it felt like every day is leg day. No matter what, we're hitting legs somehow.
I got you.
So I really liked doing like weighted squats, goblet squats. There were a few like hack squat machines there, but I was just surprised at how much weight I could start picking up. I'm not sure the name of this machine, but essentially it's like a leg press, but you are tilted down, but your legs are pushing up on a plate, you know what I
Oh, the
mean?
seated leg press machine. Yeah. It's kind of like
Yeah,
at an
yeah,
angle, probably like yeah.
yeah.
Press, yeah,
I
yeah.
I got to a point where I was like pushing up like 800 to 1,000 pounds. And I was
Get out of
just
here.
like, yes, thank you. And I was just like, wow, the strength of the human body is just absolutely amazing. And then as I did progress, and now I definitely have different fitness goals, different muscle groups that I realize, wow, I don't think I've ever tapped into these before. And if I want to continue to see uh, results, I'm going to need to switch it up. So I've definitely been training back and chest, shoulders, a lot more.
I got you. Now you've implemented nutrition. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've implemented different nutritional aspects of your fitness journey. You changed up your nutrition. You changed up your workout regimen. First off, just including your workout regimen. I'm assuming you may not have worked out before ever, kind of before you just started, even in the your friend's kind of apartment complex. Had you had any experience in working out prior to that?
Not intentionally. Not at
I
all.
got you. I got you. So you go from there. Now you're implementing weights, and your favorite day is leg day. Far as back then. Now with all this all coming together, you end up losing 210 pounds. How long did that take you overall from, let's say, start to finish? And what was that feeling like when you stepped on the scale and you saw that number?
Ooh. I remember that day of getting to Wonderland, as some people refer to, under 200 pounds. It was like unbelievable. Because I was not someone who was strictly on a schedule of checking my weight and numbers. Because again, like I said, I didn't want to get discouraged. But I didn't think from whatever time frame it would have been from 205 to I believe it was 196 when I found myself under 200 pounds. I didn't I didn't see a difference. I didn't expect that I would have went from that weight to that weight from what I was doing alone. And that was just monumental. I can't, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's a feeling like none other. It's this sense of accomplishment, and you start to flash back of when you started or
Yeah.
what made you start. Now, when you hit this goal, and you're satisfied, at that moment. What did your dad say? What did he think? Because you said that that moment in the hospital, and seeing him was the catalyst. What did he think of when he saw his baby now after everything that you've been through? And it's like, okay, look, Dad, I've dropped over 200 pounds. What did he think, and what did you think? In that moment, how was that for you?
Yeah. Well, thinking back to it now, I remember just multiple times because by that time frame, I wasn't living at home. I had an apartment of my own, and I was off doing whatever. So I wasn't seeing my parents every single day. So it was like every single time my dad saw me, it was just like, whoa, like you're looking good. Like he's like touching my muscles. And
Yeah, you were
I
a whole
remember
different person every single time you probably came and seen him. Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I remember one specific time we were out to like one of his favorite restaurants. And, I remember trying to tell him, you should eat this, not that. I believe it was like buffet style. And one of his old like colleagues or something had come up to him and like kind of looked like, who's this? Who's this? And he was, this is my daughter. And he was like, this is you. That's her. And he was like, yeah, she's built like a brick shit house.
Proud, proud, proud.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
proud,
Anytime I
proud.
come around, he's super proud of me.
Amazing, amazing. Now, once you
Mhm.
hit this what do you call it? A wonderland? Is that what you call it?
Wonderland, yeah.
Define that. That's my first time ever hearing that. Define that.
Really? I've heard that a
Yeah, yeah,
lot in the
seriously.
weight loss. Yeah, in the weight loss community. I wasn't really like the first one to kind of like come up with that, but someone had mentioned that in my YouTube comments, I believe. And I was like, Wonderland, I like that. Um, so essentially, I guess it is just, when on a weight loss journey, getting from whatever starting weight down to under 200 pounds and you see one again.
Okay, okay. I got you. I got you. I got you. So once you hit that, what major, let's say, life lesson or lessons did you learn about yourself that you can share with the listener right now who is hesitant on starting their weight loss journey?
Okay. So one thing, and this may be off a little bit, but probably not too many or too much because I know a lot of people experience this, but because I have been through the journey of losing the weight and gratefully being able to have the skin removed with surgery afterward. But a lot of people say, I'm too worried about having loose skin to start. And anytime I'm able to kind of give someone that piece of advice, always choose the skin over the lack of health, because you can live a lot longer in a bag of skin, as I've said, than you can with enormous amounts of, fat clogging your arteries and so on and so forth. So that is just one piece. But also, as generic as it may sound, do not give up on yourself. You never know when God is really working right behind you. And the second that you stop all of the work, kind of the analogy of like you're trying to strike for gold, and the second that you stop, you were just a centimeter away from it. So a lot of people, and it's so sad for me to hear that people will really go on these journeys and kind of lose themselves and go backward. But once you decide to start on a journey like this, understand it's going to be something that is lifelong. What that looks like each day is going to change each day, each month, each year. But you always have to keep that why very strong in your heart moving forward.
Amazing. Your story is so relatable. Everything that you've talked about, I've learned. I always learn from all these podcasts that I do because even me, I still need motivation daily and inspiration daily on, just trying to keep hope alive,
Yeah.
Now, for those who are trying to keep hope alive, tell them where they can reach you at on your website, IG, your most preferred social network. I will have your IG handle here in the podcast on the edit, but let everybody know where they can reach you if you offer any personal training services, weight loss consultations, or whatever. Go ahead and let everybody know where they can reach you at.
Most definitely. So I am working on rolling out some things in the coming spring, in this coming spring. So or next year, but once you can follow me on Instagram at Vibe with Red. As you said, I'll be on the screen, but that's Vibe with Red 2Ds_. And also on YouTube at Day 1 Million. That's DAY, the number 1 million. And I have not been very active on YouTube for the past couple of years. And that's a big goal of mine that I'm working on now, kind of getting back to content creation in general. So I'm super excited to get back to inspiring, the masses, honestly, and really just working through my purpose. I feel like the past couple of years, I've taken in some really deep lessons that have kind of shifted my perspective on weight loss. Instead of seeing things only from one angle or for one part or chapter of my experience in losing weight. So now I have a lot more to offer, and I'm excited to share that.
Thank you. And make sure you go follow her on YouTube, which she'll be more active on. I'm gonna give her some tips and tricks. So in regards to what I do on YouTube, yes. Get her back active, and we're going to get her back active, and make sure you follow, and make sure you engage with her too. Don't just follow and just don't do anything. Make sure you follow, engage, ask questions. And again, I'll have your IG handle up here on the screen, and I want to thank you for appearing on the Success Fitness Podcast. And this brings us to the end of another episode of the Success Fitness Podcast. And if you found inspiration in today's podcast, then please sign up to my Success Fitness newsletter. Not only will you get free access to my Facebook community, my Facebook community, Success Fitness Family, you'll also get access to my new ebook, How Many Calories Should I Eat? It's a guide with resources within to find your daily caloric and macro intake. And you will also get weekly emails when this podcast publishes every Sunday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. The link to sign up to the Success Fitness newsletter will be in the description. Thank you for listening to the Success Fitness Podcast. And we want to thank Summer Rose again for appearing on the Success Fitness Podcast. And always remember this: if it's not making you stronger, simply chant more weight, more weight, more weight. Peace out.